Welcome to the Tech Podcast. This is the show that brings you all things tech. So grab your favorite beverage, kick up your feet, and let's get started with this week's show. Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Tech Podcast. This is episode number 3 of the Tech Podcast for April the 30th, 2014. I'm your host, Jack, and I will help guide you through this magical world of technology as we know it today. And we have a lot to talk about this evening, but the show I don't think will drag on that long. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for joining me here on the YouTube videos. If you're listening to this on a podcast, thank you very much, and everything will be described as you know, so you can understand it, and I will give you the best verbal understanding that I can possibly do. If you'd like to comment on these shows, you can do that at thetechpodcast.com. You can also email me your questions. I would love to hear from you, and you can send those to info@thetechpodcast.com. Or you can call my voicemail line at 724-701-0550. You can also follow me on Twitter, and that is @TechnoMan. Thank you for tuning into and downloading the shows. If you are downloading these on iTunes, or if you go to iTunes for these shows, these podcasts, please do me a favor, rate the show on there and post a little comment. Just to say if you're learning anything or not, or whatever the case may be. And, it would be really great to have you comment on there because it helps to move the shows up in the rankings. And that always helps. Again, you can watch these videos at 2 places on YouTube. You can either go to youtube.com/thetechpodcastshow, or I also am posting these on my main YouTube channel, which has been around since 2006 or 2007. And that is at 42 Technoman, the number 4, the number 2 Technoman. If you go to the new channel, the Tech Podcast Show, please subscribe to the channel. I plan on creating these videos and keep you up to date on everything new about technology in the world as we see it today. But this is not going to be a news show. I've told you that before. And the reason it's not going to be a news show, I think there's plenty of great podcasters out there doing tech news. This is going to be more of a tech how-to show because I want you to learn how to use your computers. I want you to be able to pay this stuff forward and teach other people how to use their computers better. The first thing I wanted to mention to you tonight is we've been doing a lot of work at my full-time job at the school, and we've been upgrading a lot of the Java on the computers. Now, when you update Java on the computers, for whatever reason, this new update that they came out with, they increased the overall security level of the product itself. Because let's face it, folks, Java is one of those big security risks. Because all the time you run a Java applet on your computer, it can, in fact, add software to your computer. It can mess with it can get to the root of the hard drive. There's a lot of programming you can do with Java that people don't understand. But if you go ahead and say, hey, go ahead and execute that Java applet on my computer, it could do something. So they upped the security level. What we have been doing, though, is taking that security level back down to medium. Now, to do this, it's very, very simple. This is the same on Windows, and I found it to be the same on a Mac. Now, in Windows, you go into the control panel, and you click on the Java. There's an icon in there for Java. Click on that, and go to the Security tab, and just pull the slider down to medium. That will allow all the different websites that you normally view to be viewed. Now, there is a way, and we've been getting a lot of reports, and a lot of people have been emailing me saying, Jack, now there is also a way with Java where you can add trusted sites. But to do this, every time you hit a new site, you have to add the trusted site. So if you turn that security down to medium, you are going to, in fact, effectively what you're doing is you're setting that Java up to exactly the way it used to be at the medium level. So that's what you want to do. On the Mac, if you go to Preferences, and in your Preferences, you will see a Java icon. Go into that icon, and you can also change the security level down to medium, and then you'll be good to go. So I thought tonight what we would be talking about here is we are going to be talking about Windows 8. Because let's face it, folks, Everybody at this point is using Windows 8. I mean, if you buy a new computer, you get Windows 8 with it. And the bad side of it is nobody likes it because there is a learning curve. And I've been working with computers now for about 27 years, and I started with DOS. So when we went from DOS to Windows 3.1, there was a major learning curve, and it was horrible. It was absolutely terrible to work with Windows 3.1. I remember I would take it off the computer and put it back on. I would take it off and put it back on because we used DOS and we used what was called a menu manager. It allows us to very easily launch applications and then kind of hide them in the background until we need to relaunch those. So there was a kind of multitasking, but the only thing is when you close the application, it in effect quit working at that point, but you can easily relaunch it. And then I remember very early on in my career of computers when my mother actually, we went out one day when Windows 95 was released. And I said, Mom, I really, really want Windows 95. And she said, look, I know what you are doing with computers. You're doing great things. So why don't I buy you a copy of Windows 95? And we did that. And Windows 95, I put it on my computer. I took it off my computer. I put it on my computer and I took it off my computer. Windows 95 was a very big change for us Windows 3.1 and DOS people. The reason was that was the first time that Microsoft actually took the computer over and kind of locked it down from the people trying to tinker with the computer. Now think of this in the same light. I know when I was a young man working with my dad on cars, on a weekend my dad would say, son, come outside, we're going to change the spark plugs in the car and the wires. And we would do so. We would give the car a tune-up. We would change some the points, the distributor. We would do different things like that. Today, cars are built where they don't want you to tinker with it. You need a mechanic to work on it. And that was the same thing essentially what Windows 95 was doing. Microsoft was finally getting to the point where they were locking it down. That's when the plug-and-play first came about, was Windows 95, and they started saying, hey, you can plug a device in, you're good to go. Well, folks, we found out that really wasn't the case. I remember back then I had a lot of technicians come to me and say, oh, Jack, we're going to be out of work because they don't need us anymore. They just don't need us anymore because what's going to happen is everything's plug and play. They don't need technicians to worry about loading drivers and doing all that. But we found that that wasn't the case. It's still not the case today. Even with Windows 8, as great as it is, and as many drivers as is in Windows 8 and Windows 7, what you got to remember is new hardware comes out every day, folks. And the drivers, they're not real, all of them are not universal. So they still need technologists. They still need technicians to be able to understand the computer and kind of get under the hood. And that's kind of where I wanted to take you. You may be a new computer user. You may be an old computer user, which is, I find this even more difficult. And this is the first time you're using Windows 8. And you're like, oh, cow, this is way different. I did find Windows 8 works better with a touch screen. But let's face it, how many people have a touch screen on their desktop? There may be a few of you out there. But the majority of us do not. And we have to work with the mouse. Windows 8 was not really designed to work with the mouse. It was designed to be able to touch the screen and touch different things and tiles. That was the whole idea. They were kind of building off the success of the iPad. And it's funny because even Apple with the great success of the iPad and the iPhone and the iPod Touch, has still not yet brought out any touch computer devices. And they claim Steve Jobs, I mean, rest his soul, is a great, great guy. I admired him very wholeheartedly. But let's just say that he said at one time, nobody'd ever want to reach over and touch their screen. They just wouldn't want to do that. So Apple has kind of held fast to what Steve wanted. But Steve is gone. He's gone to that big Apple in the sky, that big computer room in heaven there. And he's doing great things now with the gods and the angels. So Apple, you need to come up to age. You had great success with touch screens with the iPads, and people expect to be able to touch their computers. Now they did try to do something here with something on the Macs called Launchpad. And if you have a Mac, you'll be familiar with this. Launchpad essentially gives you all your icons. It looks like you should be able to touch them. It makes your computer screen look like an iPad. But in fact, you cannot. So Microsoft said, hey, if the iPad's doing so well and we can build a touchscreen, we can have our distributors build touchscreens, people will want these tile interfaces. And what they were even going for more than, folks, if you don't realize this by now, Microsoft actually came out with the tablet, and they are very, very nice. We have a few people at work that bought them, and they are extremely nice. I like playing with them. I can't afford to buy one for myself, so, to play with. I am kind of an iPad guy, so if I have a tablet, I can't see buying their tablet. But they wanted all their devices to have the same look and feel. Even the Windows Phone now looks like a Windows 8 computer. But I found in talking to a lot of people, and we actually set a Windows 8 computer up at the school, and we did this. I do this all the time when a new operating system comes out. I want to see how our students react to the new operating system. That's what I enjoy doing. And when I did that, what happens is I allow the students just to sit down and log. I don't tell them. I just put the Windows 8 on one box in our library, and the students sit down. You would be surprised how many times that computer is not used through the day. We have maybe 8 Windows 7 computers and 1 Windows 8 computer. I would think people would flock to it and be like, what's this new thing? This is cool looking. I want to touch it. I want to do things. They just avoid it like the plague. They don't want to. The only people I see sitting there, and I talked to the students, I walked over and said, so what do you like about this? Well, Jack, this is what I have at home. That's what they tell me. So they're used to it. So if you're used to it, it's not a big surprise. If you're not, it is a big surprise. Just to keep you up to date there, the beer tonight is a George Killian's Red. It's made by the Coors Brewing Company. And it's a really good, smooth Irish red beer. So if you're into drinking beer when you watch these shows and when you listen, have yourself a George Killian's Irish Red. So tonight what I thought I would talk to you about is let's make Windows 8 look and feel like Windows 7. Now, I've been doing my very best, and my partner at work even laughed at me because I put Windows 8 on my work computer. And after working with it for about... let's say I worked with it for, and he even said I gave it about 3 weeks. So I gave it a good test, and I couldn't get anything done. It was driving me crazy. We run all VMware servers, so we run virtual servers, and there's a program that we have to run called vSphere that allows us to control the servers. It wouldn't originally install Windows 8, so I was stuck. I couldn't control my servers. I had to yell at him, say, hey, buddy, can you look something up over on your computer on the virtual server, because I couldn't get into them. So it was hindering my job. Now, VMware has since fixed that, and you can install it now in Windows 8.1, and it does work. I've had it running, and it's very successful. So what we're going to talk about tonight then is we are going to talk about getting your start button back. Now, remember, it is coming back, and they promised us this. It may be in Windows 8.1.1 or 8.1.2 or 8.2. We don't know. We don't know what they're talking about doing there. So what we are going to be doing though is we are going to be switching over here to my computer monitor. And we're going to get a look here at, this is my Windows 8 Metro or Start screen. They got sued when they called it Metro for some reason. I can't remember why. So now they call it the Start screen. And you can see I have it set up where I'm starting to get the feel for it, where I can organize my tiles. You can organize these just by simply clicking on them, and you can move them around. And just all I'm doing is dragging with my mouse. So you can click on like computer here, and we can move it, and I can drag it, and I'll put it back over here on top where it was. It says this PC, and it says computer. You can label groups. If you click here, there's a group up here we can label it. We'll label up here programming, because that's my Visual Studio. And you can see now where it says programming up there at the top. This says computer. This says Office. This is all my Office applications, my Word, my PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote. Everything's in there nicely grouped. Over here, I don't have these labeled because really these are just kind of icons that, do things, I guess. Here's the store. Now they have the Windows Store. Here's the sports. So it's giving me some latest sports update, maps, reading list, and so forth. Here's my stock exchange on the bottom. So that part of it's really, really useful. where your computer screen used to sit on the desktop and it didn't really do anything. Now today it is actually doing something. It's actually, you can see things and you can group things together. So it's nice that you have like the constant weather updates. We used to do other stuff with what was called widgets, but widgets have kind of went away and this kind of took it over now. So now we don't have the widgets any longer. So now what we're going to talk about is how do we make this look and feel again like Windows 7? Because if we go to the desktop now, we are on the desktop, and I'm going to minimize this for just a second there. So on the desktop itself, there's no real start button. Now, if you upgraded your computer to Windows 8.1 or 8.1 point whatever it is, I can't remember the exact current version. Let me just get that out of the way. What you need to do then is at this point, you are going to have no start button, because if you hit the start button, it brings up the start screen. Well, maybe you don't want that. You want to make it look and feel like your Windows 7 box so you can use the computer more easily. Because, folks, I believe Windows 8.1 is a solid operating system. It works. I mean, there may be some little kinks in it, but I haven't really found any. It does everything like I normally would use Windows 4. So I'm going to go back to my desktop. And you can right-click now on the Start button. A lot of people don't know that. Again, the right mouse button on the Start button. And you got these different things in here. You got Run, Search, File Explorer, which is like my computer, the Control Panel, Task Manager to see what's going on, Command Prompt in Admin Mode. Now, we're going to talk about that on one of these shows, I think, about how to run your computer in a user mode and an admin mode and why those would be different. So this is a command prompt in an admin mode or an escalated privileged mode. This is the regular command prompt. Computer management, disk management for your hard drives, the network connections, device manager for your hardware that you might have plugged into your computer, system, the event viewer in case something happens. Maybe your computer's rebooting, you want to know why. Check out the event viewer, power options, and programs and features. So that is not, you can see that you don't see in there applications or anything. So, there's nothing really in there that we can use to start our computer or to run a start screen. So what we're going to do is very, very simply, we are going to add a start menu. So if you click on this start, you click on the Internet Explorer, we are going to go to a website, and I'll have this in the show notes. So if you go to thetechpodcast.com, under show number 3, you'll see this right before the audio player. You'll see the link for classicshell.net. Classicshell.net is free, and you can see here what it gives you back. It gives you the classic start menu. That's what we're shooting for, the classic start menu. And you can see too where Classic Explorer is back, so you can actually bring your Classic Explorer back. But we're going to add the Classic Start menu. You got Classic, 2 columns, and the Windows 7. So any way you want to, you can choose between these styles just by one simple download. So let's go ahead. We're going to download it. The gentleman does take donations, so if you see it's working, and if you're working in an office, please click on that and donate, $10, $20, because this is a lifesaver, and I think it's well worth it. Let's click on download now. And we're just very simply going to download this small file. We're going to save it. And it is now downloading. It's very small, so it's not that big of a deal to download this file. And once we get it downloaded, we will go ahead and install this application to change our start menu. And you'll see that it makes it very, very easy to use and very nice. So Windows 8 is here to stay, believe me. We've been talking at work, and we are buying new computers with Windows 7 on them. And somebody said, when you upgrade, always remember this. Why upgrade the old technology? Because Windows 7 will go away eventually. It's going to be, 10 or 15 years down the road. But Microsoft's getting very aggressive with, they want you to upgrade to their latest operating systems. The reason that is, and they ask me at work all the time, Jack, why do we keep upgrading? Well, the truth is, what happens is Microsoft or any company out there, because we have other software vendors too, other than Microsoft, let's say with our library software. Well, the company will call you and say, look, we're no longer supporting version 9 that you own because we're on version 12. You can't blame them, people, because what's happening is I've written a lot of software and I don't want to go back to old code and remember what I did 10 or 15 years ago. I want to remember what I'm doing today. So if I have to support you, I want you on the latest software that I have. All right, we're going to open this up. We are going to open this folder. And here's our classic shell. So I'm just going to right click on it and click on open. And this will actually set it up and we're going to install our classic shell. So let's click next. Accept the licensing agreement. You can read it if you wish. Click next. This is Classic Explorer, Classic Start Menu, Classic IE, and Classic Shell Update. Create a shortcut menu folder. It's going to create it in Program Files, Classic Shell. That looks fine. Click next and install. Yep, we're going to click yes. We're going to go ahead and install this piece of software. And at that point, it just says click finish. And once we get this finished here, it's now doing an update. We're going to stop Word from running. You can see here that we now have, when we click on the start button, it asked us what we want to run. Classic style, classic with 2 columns, or Windows 7 style. I'm going to go with Windows 7 style. That looks like a good thing to do. And you can have the arrow button, the classic start button, or you can customize. You can pick an image yourself. Let's go ahead and click OK. And at that point, we'll just create our own little start button here. So here is our new start menu right here. This is our start screen. And you can see now where we have all programs. Here's all of our programs we have on this computer. Here's my Office 2013. I can, just like Windows 7 always been. I'm going to actually try to resize my screen here a little bit so I can show you a little bit closer to this here. Let's give a desktop. We're going to recapture an area and we're going to come down here like this for my viewing audience. So if you want to see this demonstration, you'll check out my YouTube video at 42 Technoman. And we're going to put it right about there maybe, and we'll click Done Selecting. Let's click on it now, and you can see now that classic start menu. So you have the classic pinned menu here. We have recent items here. This PC, this would be my computer. Control panel, there's all of our control panel stuff. And folks, this was very easy. You've seen it was like a 3-minute download or a 3-second download, a 30-second install, and we have our start menu back. If you right click on it, you can see here where you can go to Classic Start Menu, Windows Explorer, Open, Settings. You click on Settings, and you can bring this back again. So you can actually turn this back off, and you can replace, here, let's replace the Start button with this. I'm sorry, I didn't have that checked. Click OK. And now you can see that Start button does have the arrow button on it. So there we go. It's back up again. But yeah, so everything works just like you think it would. I mean, here's my Visual Studio for my programming. Here's my Office. Let's click on just to show you that this does work in a regular window. Here's Word 2013 right here. And just like so. So just as you would think, it's working fine and everything is perfect. What I thought I would tell you about one more step here before we go with this podcast tonight is we are going to, let me open this up here again and recapture my screen to give us a full screen effect. So you can see now that with this classic shell on there, it makes it really nice because it's back to the way we're used to working. So if I click on that now, I'm going to go into Control Panel. And we're going to go to Windows Firewall. Because I also think a lot of people don't understand their Windows Firewall. They don't really know why it's in there, what it's for, or even if they have an issue of doing an update or something with you know, something not being blocked by the firewall, you don't understand why that is. Here's what happens. Sometimes we launch a web application and it will not communicate with its server, wherever that may be. So what we need to do is go into our Windows Firewall settings and go to Allow an app or feature through the firewall. If you click on this button right here, and I'm going to go back. Let me go back here for a second. Let me recapture the screen for those folks out there watching this on YouTube. And for my audio audience, the radio audience out there, we are just simply looking at the control panel, and then we're in Firewall. Let me get done selecting this. So what you're going to do is you're going to allow an app or a feature through your firewall. Let's do that. And that's going to ask you what app. So all you have to do is you would go down through here and just look for the app, such as Evernote. Evernote must be able to go through the firewall, so it has access to the public and the private firewalls. And if there's a check mark in there, that means you're allowing it through. Let's say you want to do file and print sharing. So you set up this happens so many times. I get so many questions about this. You set up a printer on your computer. Let's say a USB printer. We do this a lot at work. And we want to share it between 3 or 4 people in one area, maybe an office space or whatever. All you do is check mark this, and you will allow that to happen. So this is your printer and file sharing. Click on Change Setting. And you can now check mark that and say you want it through public, but you probably just want it through private and not public. Public is the internet can use it, right? It's coming from the outside world in, so it's public. Or private means that you're on your private little network in your house or whatever, and you want to share that printer. You would do that, click Change Settings, and then share that printer out. And you can go through these and look at some different apps, but if you ever get an app that comes up that says it needs public access, it needs access to the internet, this could be why. Be very cautious, because sometimes you'll get an application on your computer, spyware, adware, whatever the case may be, and it may want to access the internet. And if you allow that to happen, that's when you start getting your pop-ups and everything. That's why, folks, it's a good idea to leave this firewall turned on. It's going to help protect your personal computer. So many times I work on people's computers, and they say, oh, I was trying to do this or that and it wouldn't work. I was trying to do computer backups to the internet, to Carbonite, and it wouldn't allow it to go. So they shut their firewalls off. That would be like leaving all the doors and the windows open in your house when you go to bed at night. Not a good idea. I mean, I'm sure some of you may live in the country and you say, hey, Jack, we're safe. And where I live, we're very, very safe also. But who knows these days, right? Who really, really knows? Once you get your firewall settings all taken care of, all you got to do is click the X. Now, there is Restore Defaults. If you ever get into anything, you can click on Restore Defaults. There is Advanced Settings. So you can always click on Advanced Settings and go into your Advanced Settings. And this is where you get to one of those meat and potatoes things I always talk about, because you can get very, very granulated with inbound rules. That means what's allowed to come into your computer. Outbound rules. That means what's allowed to go out from your computer. You can get those in there. Connection security rules. What can connect to your computer? And then monitoring. How would you monitor these connections itself? So the Windows firewall, especially Windows 7 and Windows 8.1, has become very, very good. It really has, and it works very, very well. So hopefully, folks, this enlightens you tonight, this little podcast here, the Tech Podcast, and hopefully I gave you a little bit of insight into Windows 8. Don't allow Windows 8 to scare you away. I mean, it's not a bad operating system once you get used to it, especially when you replace the start menu with that classic shell I showed you tonight. And again, if you go to thetechpodcast.com, there's a link there. So if you don't need to write it down, I know most podcasters will do that for you. Actually put the links out there, and you can actually download that. Folks, if you're into Windows Server, or if you're a tech admin, or an administrator of a network somewhere, you might want to check out my podcast that I produce on Tuesday nights called tipsfromtheserverroom.com. You can find it at tipsfromtheserverroom.com, obviously. You can also find it on iTunes if you want to subscribe to the podcast. And there is one other thing I want to tell you about. If you're into servers and you want to learn, you're just getting into computers, you want to know more about computers, check out tipsfromtheserverroom.com. And at the very top, click on Courses and click on Online Class. My online classes, I teach Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012 R2, and VMware ESXi 5.5. I do the install to the administration. Once you're completed taking the course, then I mail your certificate once you complete the course. All you do is you watch a video and take a short quiz, so it's very, very easy to take these courses. So check them out if you're into computers, you want to learn more. And I've been thinking about, I'm going to try to figure out a way or something about putting together a Windows 8.1 course, maybe for basic users. I might put together something even more in the line of for network administrators. So we'll see what kind of course I come up with at that point. But check out the other courses. I'm sure you'll be really impressed. With thousands of students going through that course at any given time, it's been very, very successful for everybody out there, and everybody truly enjoys it. But folks, thank you so much for listening to this podcast again. Thank you for subscribing and downloading. I truly do appreciate it, and I'm very humbled already, only on the third show on this particular show, and I see so many people listening to the show and downloading it and watching it on YouTube. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday on the Tech Podcast. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you have any questions, please email me at info@thetechpodcast.com. Now sit back and enjoy the remainder of the music, and we'll see you back here next week.